Welcome to Bets on the Future, where we highlight the various career paths in the electrifying metals world. From the vehicle you ride in to the bridge holding it up, metals are everywhere. Why not in your career too? I'm Jennifer Betts, a metals industry veteran with almost 20 years experience, here to highlight these incredible career paths as told by the women who are living them. Welcome to Bets on the Future, the live expo version. For those that are listening at home, at work, on the drive, spoiler alert, we recorded this live in person at ISRI 2024. Our guest today is the president of ISRI, or soon to be something else. Robin Wiener. So I just want to say thank you so much for hopping on.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for including me.
The Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries is not going to be that. And again, spoiler alert, 2 days?
2 days. On Thursday at 11 o'clock, we announce it.
I thought it was a perfect opportunity to have you on, learn about your background, how you got involved in ISRI, and then learn and maybe get a spoiler or a hint or two about the rebrand.
I think I will no longer be at ISRI at noon on Thursday if I tell you now.
Okay.
So I can't tell you.
But in this podcast, we like to talk about the metals industry in general and how there are such a wide variety of careers that exist in this industry that most people just don't really even understand exist.
Correct.
And what better person to talk to than somebody that's been in this industry and seen such a wide variety of careers. So I kind of want to step back a little bit and learn, how did you get involved?
Sheer luck. I didn't know anything about the recycling industry, about trade associations, to be honest, until I found ISRI. I was actually starting law school at night, and I was working for an environmental consulting firm. I have an engineering background. That was back in, I've been instructed to move the mic closer. I was working for a consulting firm in Washington that had moved out to the suburbs of DC. The law school was on Capitol Hill, and I needed to find a job closer to the law school. That was literally my criteria for a job. And ISRI was hiring. I had absolutely no idea what the association was, but I figured I could do anything for a couple of years. And most importantly, I could get from the offices of ISRI to the law school in 15 minutes. And so I took it, and it got in my blood. I fell in love with the industry, fell in love with the people, and I couldn't leave.
It really is kind of that saying that we have where you give it, 6 months, a year, 2 years, and I don't think any of us have left. Or if we've left, we
come back.
We pretty much all come back.
It's actually amazing how many employees of ISRI, if they've left, have asked to come back. Mm-hmm. There's something very special about this industry.
It really is, and when you take a look at the huge push in circular economies, the recycled materials, you look at carbon emissions, a lot of the things that people talk about, or even slap, the term buzzwords on right now, ISRI is at the heart of that. And so when you're looking at careers, metals and metals manufacturing in particular, those careers really are at the heart of the next generation careers.
Well, I think it's a unique industry that has both economic benefit and environmental. And you can feel good about what you're doing. And, we all talk about the workforce of the future and also the workforce challenges that industries across the economy are facing now in terms of getting workers interested and into the workforce. And one of the things that you hear is that this generation of, I call them kids, and those in their 20s, 30s, they really want to feel good about where they are and feel like they have a purpose. And working on our industry gives them that purpose.
It really does. And so I have to imagine that played a part in the rebrand, right?
Absolutely.
So at what point did ISRI say the term scrap needed or should be, I don't want to say adjusted, but how far back was this starting to have a discussion?
Actually, about 12 years ago, believe it or not.
Really?
12 years ago, actually here in Las Vegas at ISRI's convention, we had a general session speaker, Michael Mislansky. And I had found Michael at actually a function I went to. He's a language expert. And he did this shtick where he did a live focus group on stage and then talked about how the language that's used, how it affects people's impressions. And part of our contract with him for the general session speech was that afterwards he'd give us an analysis. So we did this live focus group here in Las Vegas. He pulled the people randomly off the streets of Las Vegas. And it was a fascinating general session. Basically, what everyone said was, we love recycling. Recycling, we realize how important it is, but the industry, not so much. Didn't really, and thought, to be honest, some things I don't want to say here on this podcast. And so one of his recommendations was to get rid of the term scrap. And also told us that we would start seeing more attention on the industry as a result of the blue bin. And we said, no, that can't be. That's not going to happen. And we didn't do anything with it. Mm-hmm. And then in the middle of the pandemic, there was a discussion among a number of business of members, volunteers, including John Sacco, Greg Brown, and numbers who said, we need to finally take the leap and get rid of scrap. And we realized the first step was figuring out our messaging. And so I called Michael and I said, remember us? And he said, absolutely. It's hard to forget.
We're very memorable.
Yes, we are very memorable. And so he came back and we talked to him. And we brought him in initially to develop our lexicon.
Okay.
To tell us what are those words that resonate with policymakers, journalists, and the general public about the industry, and what are the words that don't. And so how do we have to talk about the industry in a way that will break through? Because we were really running into a big challenge of not being able to get our messages out effectively. And I'll be very honest with you, I even had a hard time with what the right elevator speech was, because I talk in jargon too. And so he told us that what we have to do is we have to really, it's three things. We have to talk about things that are relatable. Mm-hmm. So we have to talk to people about how recycled materials are used in their everyday lives, how the cars you drive in, the roads you drive on, the bridges you drive over, etc., are all made out of recycled materials. Mm-hmm. We also have to talk about that output and not the input. I think scrap is beautiful. I love turnings. I love shredded scrap, etc., and I'll hang pictures of them on my wall. But it's not beautiful to your average person. It looks like waste. So we need to talk about the output, the recycled materials. And so we started looking at, therefore, the output and talking about, again, cars you drive and the wires going into your home, etc. And so from that, we also have to talk about the partnerships and collaborations and innovation going on in the industry. Because just look at this trade show floor. It's amazing, all the innovation and technological changes and new technology that's coming into the industry. And we need to talk about that.
I do have to say, so I've been in the industry a couple decades at this point, and the amount of technology companies that are here is impressive. Because, 2 decades ago, that was not a thing, right? To see multiple booths, right. I would say multiple rows, if you will, aisles of technology companies, software companies, really focusing on our industry is really fantastic. Yep. It's a little overdue.
It is.
Okay. There's definitely some opportunities here.
Yep.
And it just shows that the right attention is finally coming to our industry.
Absolutely. And so I'm very excited about that. And that's why it continues to grow. Mm-hmm. But then, so when we were done with the lexicon about 1.5 years ago, we said that the next logical step is to look at our own brand, because we're the Institute of Scrap Recycling Industries. First of all, what's an institute? We're not an institute. And scrap is not the right word. That's not what resonates. When people think of scrap, they think of things that are tossed and not of value. So we need to update how we talk about ourselves. We're not changing who we are, but we are changing how we talk about ourselves. And I'll just mention that I know a lot of us have a lot of attachment to ISRI and our logo. When I told my own kids, who've grown up with me, in the industry, about the change, they said, you have to still be ISRI. You're ISRI. And it's like, no, we have to change. I mean, our logo, which is the links, that's the merger of ISIS and NARI. It's the coming together of those two associations in '87.
Oh, wow.
We're past that. I mean, still very important part of our history, but that's not our primary identifier anymore. We need to look to the future, and that's what the new brand will allow us to do.
Your point about the output is something that has really resonated with me recently. I can't remember which ISRI conference it was, maybe Gulf Coast or the Southeast. I think I was talking to one of the ISRI board members about the lexicon project. And it wasn't until that particular board member was talking to me about the output that it really made sense, because if you may or may not know, I have a TikTok account. And some of the comments that I get on there when I post videos about the steel industry or about the metals industry or about the recycled materials industry in general, specifically about the United States, because I'm obviously biased, but we do a really fantastic job in the United States about how we've set up our metals manufacturing, right, where the majority of it does come from recycled materials.
Yep.
The comments I get from the population outside of our industry, the lack of knowledge of how we've set up our industry is very surprising, where they don't understand that, I'll use the term scrap, is used in the predominant way that we manufacture metals here. It just showcases the need to shift to that output, where you showcase that that bridge comes from predominantly recycled materials, that building comes from basically recycled materials, right? That you start showcasing to them that, you know, the washer and dryer probably comes from heavily recycled materials, and then you start just giving them products that is tangible to the everyday consumer, that no, you, when you're done with that and your car goes to the auto shredder and that it gets polymerized down, which is a fantastic video if you're not putting it on the internet. It's always fascinating to see that gets back into the supply chain.
Exactly.
Into a new product.
And that's also part of what we need to hammer in on more, which is the manufacturing supply chain and how critical we are to that manufacturing supply chain. And I will tell you that the brand and the lexicon and the rebrand are the result of tremendous amount of research. It is data driven. And so part of what Ms. Lansky and Partners did for us is they scoured the internet and they did a lot of research across all social media platforms to find out how people were talking about the industry and recycling and where it was positive and where it was negative. And the image that always comes to my head and that they highlighted, one of the memes that got the most attention back in 2000 was Bernie Sanders at the inauguration of President Biden with his gloves made out of recycled materials. And that just really took off. And it was focused on the recycled materials in his gloves and his mittens. And so it's just an example. If we had him holding turnings, it wouldn't have been the same thing. So it's the recycled materials that we have to focus on.
Absolutely. Somebody recently told me a stat about the amount of export on the recycled materials that the United States exports annually.
Right. And
it was something along the lines of it might be the second or the third largest in terms of product that the United States exports annually, right?
Right.
Why isn't that fact more out there to the everyday?
Well, it is, but in a negative way, and this is what we're trying to change.
Yes.
Because I think what's really critical to understand is that we are critical to the manufacturing supply chain, domestically and globally. So our materials move where industry needs it, where the demand is by steel mills, foundries, plastic manufacturers, paper mills, etc. And that could be in Tokyo, Shanghai, Madrid, or in Chicago. It's going to move anywhere there's a demand by manufacturing for those very critical, high-quality raw materials, that renewable resource. And so in any given year, and this has been going on well before China came into the stage, about a third of what we process here in the U.S. ends up as recycled material that travels and is exported to about 150 different countries around the world. And also, I will say, having traveled a lot around the world, the U.S. and the U.S. recycled materials industry is known for producing very high quality material. So it is a very desired product.
To that point, it also has lent to I'll say relatively recent, within the past 5 to 10 years, of a larger foreign investment of additional manufacturers coming to
Absolutely.
the United States. You've seen
Correct.
large manufacturers coming to set up metal manufacturers that specifically use a lot of high recycled materials.
Absolutely.
Because we have the raw materials here.
Well, and I think that there's also a couple of other drivers that are affecting that. There's the fact that there's much more of an emphasis globally, put aside our industry, on nearshoring and trying to because of what we all experienced during COVID with that fragile supply chain for products across the economy, there is a desire to move some manufacturing closer to home.
Yeah.
And particularly when it comes to critical minerals. And we heard it this morning when Mike Werner from Google spoke about how critical our industry is to the sourcing and circularity of critical minerals, which are needed as our economy electrifies and decarbonizes.
It really does make sense timing-wise why ISRI is going through this rebrand. I do have to say it is going to be a little hard for some of us.
For all of us.
To shift over from that scrap term. There are some companies, a few of us out there, that have scrap in the name. At Recycled Media, we do have a couple podcasts with scrap in the title. So,
right. Well, let me emphasize, this isn't going to happen overnight.
Right.
We are starting this at effectively noon on Thursday, but it won't end. We won't be done with the transition even within ISRI until we're in San Diego for the 2025 show. I was going to say ISRI 2025, but it won't be ISRI 2025. It'll be blank 2025, May 12th through 15th in San Diego. And that's when our goal is to be done with the process, because it's amazing. We've done a review of all of the content we have, and there's a tremendous amount that has to be revised, pulling scrap out from so many different places where it's embedded. And so it's going to take time.
I can't imagine from a marketing perspective, a rebranding perspective, what y'all have to do over the next year. Jason, if you're out there, good luck. Best wishes to you.
It's been a busy couple of months. There's no doubt about it.
Yes. Looking back 30 years, I mean, would you have seen this coming? I mean,
The truth is probably yes. I mean, I didn't know when it would happen, but actually I can remember, I started with ISRI when I was 5, so I've been here a long time. And I can remember, to be honest, in the 90s, a member standing up at a board meeting and saying, we've got to get rid of the term scrap. I mean, it didn't really pick up steam until recently, but it's been in the back of our minds for a while. But there's been this tremendous loyalty and emotion around ISRI, and I've got it too. It's hard, but around ISRI and scrap, and so it really had to take the right forces to come together to make us take this leap. And I commend the leadership of Brian Hennessy and Gary Champlin before him, who took us through the lexicon, for really taking this step, because there were those who didn't want us to go down this road. But I will tell you that it's really critically important, because I saw the effect of it this summer, actually. This past summer, we had our annual fly-in on Capitol Hill using our new lexicon, and it was the first time since we had that lexicon that we could use it on the Hill with legislators in Congress. And I could see the bulbs going off, where it's been frustrating in past meetings where you really had to explain what scrap is and what shredding is and everything else. And when you're able to talk in terms of, again, cars they drive in, the pizza boxes they get in their home, the Amazon boxes, etc., light bulbs go off so much faster. And that's what we're trying to do, give everyone the tools to get our messages out.
Over the past year, I've had some opportunities to sit in with some private equity firms, some VC meetings, and not to say capital investments are the end-all be-all, but when I've had these conversations and I've shifted my terms,
Right.
and I've started using recycled materials or circular economies,
Right.
all of a sudden their eyes light up,
Yep.
right? When I start using terms like scrap, all of a sudden it's like they don't understand what I'm talking about. And it's so unfortunate for them,
Right.
because they don't understand the impact that we have on infrastructure, manufacturing, the economy, and it's just switching.
Well, and you're absolutely right. And you know, it really took someone from outside for us to realize how much we needed this. And I'll give you an example. I've got my own lexicon I have been using for years when I meet with regulators, legislators, other stakeholders to talk about the industry. And I very proudly talk about the feedstock, and I talk about commodity grade material, because I think commodity grade material is special and it says something really important. And when they tested it, it's not so special. People think of, apparently commodity grade is a term that's used that people in Washington and policymakers think about construction grade. You know, when you build a home, it's the lower grade material. And it was like, wait a minute, no, that's not what I meant. And so we really had to, all of us, myself included, had to learn from an outsider who did this research to tell us how we need to talk about what we do much better.
That's very interesting, because I think of commodities or commodity grade, I would have thought it would have been the higher grade.
Me too, but it's not.
Okay. Wow. I'm very interesting. When Thursday rolls around and you're doing the reveal, are you going to be? Is there going to be any additional explanation or?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So there will be a little bit of.
What we're going to do on Thursday.
Okay.
Michael Maslansky will be there along with Brian and Colin and other leaders, and there will be an explanation of the different elements of the new brand and how we came to it. Everything from the name, the tagline, the colors, the image that's used for the logo, etc. And then afterwards, we've got a little gift bag for everyone. And in that gift bag is some great merch, as well as a brand book. So you can take it home, and it gives you all the information you need to talk about the industry. We're also going to have digital assets, because I know a lot of people have proudly put the name of ISRI on their trucks, on the side of the buildings and signs, business cards, etc. So we'll have digital imagery, and you'll have access to, everyone will have access to it, so you can use that in your own operations as well.
That's fantastic. Some of the listeners on this particular podcast are throughout the full supply chain in the metals industry. So for those that are listening, please, I would say Google ISRI, but by the time this comes out and is edited,
That'll still work.
Okay, all right. So
We'll have a little divert from ISRI to the new brand.
Okay, so ISRI.org if you want to look up the new, whatever the new rebrand.
Noon on Thursday, everything's going to transfer over on our website.
Okay. All right. And if anybody would like to reach out to you, what's the best way? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is great,
Okay.
or email me at rwiener, RWIENER, at ISRI.org, which will still forward to the other one, I'd love to tell you what it is, because I'll tell you, it's getting harder and harder for me not to use our new name, because I love the new name, but I can't tell you.
I do have to say, I'm very impressed, because our industry is about trading information, and I really have not heard. I've heard some good guesses, but honestly, I have not heard really anything in terms of what it's going to be.
I'll just tell you, I think you're all going to be really happy with it and excited about it.
Well, Robin, I really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Especially during this whole really big week for you, and best wishes on
Thank
Thursday.
you. And I want to thank you, because one of the reasons why this happens and we're so successful is because of people like you who talk about ISRI, talk about the industry, use social media to leverage not only your own voice, but the voice of the industry. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I'm biased, obviously, but I think what we do is pretty cool. So I'm trying to get
too.
some more folks into our
Thank you.
industry. So,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.